see if we can arrange that for you.
All right, good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
I'd like to call the March meeting of the Board of Early Education and Care to order. I want to extend my thanks to the team here in Quincy for hosting us today. It's always a pleasure to be here. A common thread running through today's agenda is partnership across communities, across providers, and across state government. Strengthening early education care in Massachusetts depends on collaboration across the many people and institutions that support children and families. Today's items reflect that in different ways. We'll begin with an update on the Commonwealth Preschool Partnership Initiative, where we'll hear from local partners about how school districts, community providers, and Head Start programs are working together to expand access to high-quality preschool. We'll also spend some time discussing family, friends, and neighbor care, which reminds us that for many families...
Sorry, I think it's kind of loud in the back. Do you mind just speaking up
Yeah.
bit? Sure.
We'll also spend time discussing family, friend, and neighbor care, which reminds us that for many families, trusted caregivers, grandparents, relatives, and neighbors are an essential part of how they make early care and learning work. And finally, we'll receive an update on the Interagency Early Education and Child Care Task Force, which reflects the administration's continued effort to take a whole of government approach to improving access, affordability, and quality across the system. Today, these conversations highlight how much progress depends on strong partnerships across the early education and care ecosystem. I'll now turn it over to Acting Secretary, Commissioner Kershaw, for opening remarks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And I also want to thank our partners who are here today. We're joined by Superintendent Mulvey and Assistant Superintendent Perkins. Thank you so much for being here, and all of our community partners from Quincy. We're really looking forward to highlighting, elevating the work being done here in Quincy on behalf of children and families. I also want to thank Renee Collier and the Quincy team here for EEC, there she is, for hosting us at this meeting today, and also our partners on the task force. Indeed, a partnership heavy day to celebrate. I also want to celebrate Women's History Month. March is Women's History Month, and it's particularly important, I think, for us in the early education and care field to recognize and take a moment to acknowledge the contributions of women in history, to culture, and to our civic life here in Massachusetts and across the country. Women's history is American history, and particularly in the early education and care field. Our workforce at EEC is heavily dominated by incredibly talented women, and also the early education and care sector, supporting children's learning and families to work every day. So celebrating women this month. We were really excited yesterday to announce a brand new dedicated loan repayment program for early education and care staff working in family child care, center-based programs, and our residential programs. And this is a loan repayment program funded through the fiscal 25 and 26 budgets at $15 million. It's a partnership between Department of Early Education and Care and the Department of Higher Education. While early education and care staff have been eligible for general loan repayment programs in the past, this was a commitment by the legislature and the administration to create a dedicated opportunity for our staff to have real academic and financial relief through this loan repayment program. So it's up to $7,500 for any individual per year. And in our field, that's real money and real compensation in the pockets of our staff. So we are looking forward to, I think we opened the application on Monday, and we've already received a number of applicants, and we expect it to be a really important recruitment and retention mechanism for the early education and care staff. We know we've made a lot of progress on wages, and that they are still too low for many staff, and this is a real opportunity to address compensation and hopefully retain some of our qualified staff. We'll be prioritizing staff who've been in the field for 5 or more years, who have a qualifying bachelor's degree from a state public or private institution. So we look forward to reporting on that, and thank our partners at the Department of Higher Education. We'll be hosting 2 information sessions on March 25th. You can find that information on our website at 1 p.m. and 7 p.m., and we encourage folks to apply. Last month, we shared that the state was going to be transitioning to a brand new accounting system, which I think has been in the works for 20 years. And I just want to recognize that we moved from the MARS system to the Mosaic system, and our fiscal team worked really closely with the comptroller's office and others across the state. And we have had successful transition to that system, and payments are back up and running. which is really important for us. It should modernize the experience, both for us at the agency as well as our providers who do business with us. We will be joining our partners in K-12 and higher education at the Joint Ways and Means Committee to discuss the governor's proposed FY27 budget in Lawrence High School on March 23rd. So we look forward to sharing that date. That testimony will be live streamed, so we'll share that link with the board members if you're interested in watching. Our April board meeting will be April 8th, and we'll be back in Boston, and we will be very excited to welcome our new secretary, Dr. Steven Zreich, who starts in his role on March 30th. I will be particularly excited for him to be joining us, and we'll look forward to introducing him to all the board members and to the EC team. That concludes my updates, Mr. Chairman.
Next on our agenda is public comment. I don't believe anyone here in the room is here for public comment, correct? Just want to verify that. Great. We'll move on to routine business. We have before us the minutes of the February 11th, 2026 board meeting. Are there any additions, corrections, or edits to the minutes as presented? Hearing none, I make a motion to approve the minutes. Can I have a second? Second, Carolyn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great. The minutes pass. And now we'll move to our first agenda item.
Terrific.
CPPI.
Okay, well, I want to welcome our EC team. We're going to start with an overview of the program for the board, kind of an update on where we are in the Commonwealth Preschool Partnership Initiative, what preschool access looks like statewide, some of the data we're collecting, and then we are really excited to welcome our community panel to talk a little bit about what it looks like on the ground here in Quincy. So Jocelyn and Kyla and Virginia, please join us up here, and be great if you started just by introducing yourselves. And I'll just remind members of the board that the Commonwealth Preschool Partnership Initiative is Massachusetts's approach to universally accessible preschool. We are taking somewhat of a different and sometimes slightly more complicated and messy, I'm sure you'll hear a little bit about, approach in Massachusetts. Nearly 80% of 3 and 4-year-olds are already enrolled in some kind of formal early education and care program. And our strategy goes right to trying to invest directly in the resources and leverage those where families are already being served. A really core element that you're going to hear about is that this is a partnership between our local school districts and our community-based programs, embracing the mixed delivery system and centering the experience of what families want to choose and what makes sense for their lives. So we have made pretty significant progress over the past year. In particular, in the past 2 years, it is a key element of the governor's Gateway to Pre-K agenda, along with expanding access to child care financial assistance, which you hear about frequently, our Commonwealth Cares for Children program, which you all also hear about frequently, and then the Interagency Task Force, which is on today's agenda. The last thing I just wanted to say is that we are taking really a multi-pronged approach to universally accessible early education and care. So all the work we do through expanding access to child care financial assistance to make it more affordable for families, investing in the stability and financial viability of programs through C3, working with partners across state government to try and turn over new resources that can be used in early education and care, and many of our workforce initiatives, whether it's loan repayment or scholarships. All of those resources, including our capital investments, may also be in a CPPI classroom. So we really think of universally accessible pre-K as our broader strategy. And then the Commonwealth Preschool Partnership is really coming on top of that, filling the gaps that we see in the system and bringing community partnerships and leaderships to really think at the community level, what is it going to take for that particular community to reach more families and more children with the early education they need. So having said that, I'm going to turn it over to Jocelyn and the team. You guys each introduce yourselves, please, and look forward to the presentation.
Thank you, Commissioner. Jocelyn Bound, Deputy Commissioner for Workforce Program Support and Innovation. And this is a very small part of the CPPI team, but Kyla, I'll pass it to you.
I'm Kyla McSweeney. I'm the Director of District and Community-Based Partnerships.
And I'm Virginia Spinks. I'm a data specialist focusing on CPPI, sitting in EEC's data analytics team.
I will introduce the broader team in a few minutes, but very happy to be here to share talk about both the Commonwealth's approach to thinking about expanding preschool access, but also the CPPI program and the specifics of where that program is right now. This is preaching to the choir a little bit, but we wanted to start just by talking about the why of the preschool access work. I think many of you are probably familiar with Perry Preschool and the Abecedarian study. These are landmark studies going back to the 60s and 70s that found positive impacts of preschool access on both short-term growth across the domains of development and school readiness, as well as longer-term impacts, including continued engagement with education, reduction in engagement with the criminal justice system. And we also have more recent and more local studies in Massachusetts that have mirrored some of these results. The Preschool Expansion Grant was sort of the original program on which CPPI has built over the years. This is a federally funded program, and an impact evaluation there found similarly positive impacts for children on literacy outcomes in particular, but a range of academic outcomes. Similarly, work with looking at Boston UPK programs has found similar short-term outcomes, and interestingly, in a recent study, longer-term outcomes that mirror some of the ones from Perry and Abecedarian as well around school engagement and reduction in criminal justice involvement. So overall, I think there's a very robust research base that highlights both the immediate impacts around kindergarten preparedness that quality preschool can have for children, and some of the longer-term positive outcomes for children that experience these programs as they move into adulthood. So as the commissioner outlined, the strategy in Massachusetts is a comprehensive and systemic strategy. We will focus on CPPI in this presentation, but it is one part of the broader picture. CPPI are the funds that go locally to districts to work with community-based partners to collaborate around integrating across funding sources, planning strategically, and organizing the local system to meet local preschool access goals. But it's building on a system in the state where there's a strong investment in childcare financial assistance. This supports families in accessing affording preschool access. And the work that's been done recently in building rates ensures that the rates paid for that programming is sufficient to sustain quality programming. And then there are a number of operational funding sources as well, most notably C3, which supports programs in affording educator compensation increases, as we've seen recently, and other types of quality investments. There are also capital grants available to support programs with capital expenses. And all of these investments build the system as well. And we've seen some of the growth in the system that is also necessary to ensure that families have access to preschool. But the CPPI work becomes the focused work around how do you build on all of these resources and infrastructure and make the system work for the community. And that's where we'll focus. I did promise to introduce the broader CPPI team. You can see everybody who's been working on this and many others who've partnered in a variety of ways, but this team really crosses divisions and units in EEC, as well as reflects work from partners at DESE as well as EEC. And this reflects the collaborative nature of the grant work. We're also doing this at the system level ourselves. So to look at where we are broadly in Massachusetts around preschool access, this chart draws from data that we have from C3, that we have from district enrollment data, and is our estimates of access for 4-year-olds across the state right now. The blue line shows you from 2023 to 2025, so the statewide estimates of preschool access, and you can see that we're doing pretty well as a state, and this has been growing over time. But the red and the green lines at the top are CPPI communities and the gateway cities within CPPI that really function in the same way. So the lines move together. And you can see that access is even higher when there's this level of investment in the community. And the yellow line down at the bottom are the gateway cities that have not yet engaged with CPPI. And I think that just reflects our desire to bring them in to CPPI if funding's available and to continue the work expanding across gateway cities. This is a different way of looking at where children are attending and the funding that's available to support affordable access. The blue, both the dark and the lighter blue, reflect children enrolled in EEC licensed private programs. The darker blue is the percentage that receive child care financial assistance support. Red reflects district enrollment. Green is Head Start. There's a very small sliver in private schools like Catholic schools. And the gray indicates our best estimate of those that are not yet currently enrolled. And on the right-hand side, you can see how this is distributed statewide. And then just to the left of that, the total across CPPI does reflect the ways in which there are fewer families enrolled in programs that they need to pay for directly. There are more affordable options in those communities, and expansion across the various types of opportunities that there are for families, including the districts. This map shows where CPPI communities are located. You can see they're distributed across the state. This grant has been in place for a little over 10 years now. And if you include the preschool expansion grant stage of the work. And districts have come in at different points in time. And so they're in different places in implementation. The blue districts are those that have been doing this grant for a while. Red reflect early implementation communities that recently had a planning grant or are in the process of getting their CPPI programs up and running. And then the yellow show where the gateway cities are that are not yet engaged with CPPI. I'm going to turn it over to Kyla to share the program goals.
Thanks. As stated, our goal for CPPI is to promote collaborative partnerships with diverse stakeholders across preschool settings to build quality preschool access, including special education services. And our community-based partner programs are an integral part of that goal. Our first priority is also access to affordable quality preschool. We're going to talk today about how grantees are achieving access to preschool for children in their community by showing data on enrollment by key demographics and how families are being serviced by different subsidy streams. For example, many communities use local funds to prioritize children ineligible for CCFA or on the CCFA waitlist. We also highlight communities' efforts on curriculum evaluation using the validated ratings of selected curricula and supports in implementing that curricula. Communities are adopting common curriculum across settings or supplementing their curriculum with domain-specific curriculum. We'll profile what class scores tell us about the quality of CPPI classrooms and how the scores are used to plan professional development. Furthermore, we'll highlight the success communities are having in ensuring access to special education services for children in their community-based programs by looking at special education services received by preschool settings and how we're progressing on eliminating exclusionary discipline. Communities are employing inclusion specialists who assist teachers in supporting children on IEPs throughout the whole day after the specialist leaves, and including specialists to provide support with children with behavioral challenges.
And do you want to drive or do you want me to?
I can, sure. Well, okay. We'll switch over to a little bit of the data pieces and what we know about how CPPI is serving children broadly across the state. The data here will be focused on FY25 since we're collecting and validating the FY26 data right now. So in FY25, CPPI served over 3,000 children, an increase from last year across the state of Massachusetts. The vast majority of partner programs, of 103 of them, were community-based settings, so center-based and family childcare. And as you can see, the proportion of children enrolled in each of these kinds of settings is reflective of the number of program partners. We have a couple of CPPI grantees who have really made inroads in partnering with family childcare programs as well. Just calling out Sandwich and Northampton, who have really done a great job in including those programs in the CPPI structure. So the other big pillar of access for priority one is the affordability of that access. So we know from the data that we have that about half of children in CPPI classrooms are attending a full day of pre-K for free, which we define as 6 hours a day. Although the vast majority of children enrolled in CPPI are enrolled in extended daycare. So I was just checking today, Quincy's average of enrolled students is about 40 hours a week, which is consistent across all of CPPI. So another quarter of families are paying with reduced cost, and we think that part of that is just the extended day that they're paying for. And another quarter of families are still paying full tuition to be in a
And I don't
CPPI
think we can
classroom.
distinguish between the reduced
Yeah.
costs and the full tuition in
Right.
terms of what exactly it is. It could be full tuition for an after-school program too, or
Right.
a full day preschool.
Exactly.
So, I think the only other thing I will say about this as well, communities vary a great deal in terms of how they're engaging with families. Some are really focusing on access for the lowest income families. Some are looking more at trying to support broad-based access. So the communities do differ in terms of the extent to which they are trying to make this a free program for everybody versus recognizing they want to focus on quality across the district and make this accessible to higher income families, but not necessarily subsidize everybody in the community. So thinking about quality, we're really thinking about two components of programming when we look at quality in CPPI. One is the nature of the curriculum, and the second, which I'll get to in a minute, is the nature of the interactions between the adults and the children. We have recently done a lot of work on developing our ability to review and evaluate the quality of curriculum, particularly preschool curriculum. We do now have a method whereby we can evaluate both the sort of general quality of a curriculum as a developmentally appropriate curriculum across all domains of development, but also focus in on the extent to which the curriculum supports practices that are important for language and literacy, for math development, for social emotional learning. And so the CPPI communities are all using the reports that we've started to develop and focusing in on identifying both the best curriculum for their community based on the quality of the curriculum, but also the fit of the curriculum to the community. You know, some curriculum are focus on books in urban environments. Others have a more broad-based set of resources. So there are differences curriculum to curriculum in terms of fit with community. And this is an opportunity to really work closely with these types of decisions and also make sure attention is focused on the ways in which curriculum implementation is supported and any supplement to curriculum is built into the system. So it's a holistic look at the nature of the curriculum and the nature of the implementation and working with the districts to support that. The class observation tool is a commonly used tool. I think many of you are familiar with it. I believe we've talked about class results here before as well. But it is a pretty common way to understand the quality of interactions in the classroom. And, you know, it's been used enough so that we can say that scores above certain key thresholds are associated with children's language development, improved social emotional skills, and better engagement in learning. So there's real meaning for families and children in classrooms that reach these types of quality thresholds set by these scores. And the scores look across different dimensions of classroom interactions. So the emotional supportiveness of the classroom, the extent to which it's warm and responsive, the organization of the classroom, the extent to which a classroom is really well managed to support productive engagement in learning, and then the instructional support, which focuses in on the ways in which educators are engaging children's language and literacy development, their cognitive development, and really focused on the learning component of the work. I'm not going to get into the details. Don't you worry.
She promised if we included it, she wouldn't go into the details.
Some people do well with averages and one number, and other people are like, that's just a number. So these dots each represent a classroom. For some people, that works better. Across all the different ways that the class can measure what's happening in the classroom. You can see the green is the emotional support, the blue is classroom organization, the orange is the instructional support. I'm not going to go into this, but at the bottom you can see some of the subdomains that factor into each of these, which just gives you a sense of what's being measured. The black bars going across are those thresholds that I was talking about, where you really want to see scores above those bars for the highest quality. And you can see the majority of CPPI classrooms are above the bars, but there is also a range, which is typical. And one of the great value of using this tool is it also provides this data to the programs. And this provides an opportunity to think about those classrooms at the lower end of the range. How is professional learning support and targeted towards some of the skills that the teachers are or not showing? And I also just want to call out instructional support is notoriously hard to get high scores on. There are some very high scores in that distribution that I just want to celebrate because that is not typically what is seen. So it's lots of just something to note.
Jocelyn, can I just so let's focus on there are a lot of high scores there, right? So even if you take instructional support, which does have some high scores, like what is just remind like the community of practice that shares like what's happening in those classrooms that maybe the people on the bottom of that chart can learn from?
I mean, it will be different community to community because each community is working together to think about how they're providing both individualized professional learning support to educators as well as joint professional learning. And Kyla, feel free to jump in, but some of the things we've seen are you can look across your scores and you can, like one thing that's common is the sort of student responsiveness component of the scores tend to be lower, regard for student perspectives, the engagement and the back and forth. So maybe you're going to organize a joint professional learning around how do you engage with students and how do you be more responsive in your engagements and the discussions with students. But
yes. I was going to say, we also have dedicated coaches that are in there in the classrooms demonstrating what quality looks like and demonstrating mentoring practices that are good.
And that type of work can be more focused on the needs.
I'm just thinking if I'm a leader and I'm in the bottom and I want to say like, actually, I want to get to the top, like who can I learn from up there, whether or not they're in a different part of the state or a different part. I know communities are different, but there's got to be a lot of shared.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say I would put money on the fact you see a similar distribution within community as well as across communities. So there already is a resource within the community. I think it's an interesting point, though, to think about. Like we could use this to call out classrooms across the state that could be model opportunities to share. Really
we have had a number of our CPPI grantees will go to other districts to learn from them, and they'll do some visits in CPPI classrooms. So we have a lot of that going on.
Yeah, we know it's different community by community, and it's new. Right. So there's probably a lot of on the ground learning, building and flying, and just as much as we can, point people in the right direction to say you might want to talk to them. I mean, I'm sure it happens organically as well, but just seems like there could be a lot of shared learning. Yeah.
And it's also important to recognize some of these dots are teachers that are new, either to the classroom, to the program, and some have been here for a while too. So.
Among CPPI grantees?
So there are within communities, they will have communities of practice, professional development. There's a great professional development today happening in Northampton. They're spending most of the day in a professional development together where the programs have all closed and are coming together. We do sometimes also bring them across the state into communities of practice. We did one on special education, for example, for the last 3 years. And we're going to be continuing doing some in different areas.
There are a lot of things that we can have communities of practice on. But no, I mean, I think it's an interesting point to think about, how can we support across districts in their sort of ability to envision what high quality looks like. It's certainly something that I think at the district level, sometimes learning how to see it is an important part of the work and something that we could build in at the statewide.
Yeah, and just maybe an innate efficiency, right? Like in helping people think, like you could sit in a room for a long time trying to think of how to move the needle when maybe the answer is in another community that you could, you know. So.
And anytime we bring them together, it's incredibly popular with people around all the various things that they're working on.
I think it's a great question for us to ask our community partners when they're up here too. You will all recall that we did a big CPPI roadshow last year, and I'm just thinking about the times we spent in the communities, in particularly in Somerville, where they're very data driven. They're using the class scores, and they have created a continuous quality improvement mindset within their kind of CPPI partnership. So they're sharing class scores, and if somebody's doing better on one part of it, they're sharing what they're doing with others, or they might be hosting professional development, or a lot of sharing of coaches happening between the districts and the community-based programs that might focus on something they've learned through the class scores. So.
And I imagine a lot of communities are just trying to figure this out themselves before they even think about sharing so I know I'm just thinking about the future steps sort of down the road.
I think just also to call out, in the coaching that Kyla was talking about, some of that focuses on understanding these scores and thinking about how to use it. And that's provided statewide, not always through a community of practice structure, but something that we support.
we're also contracting with Wellesley College that is going out and doing class observations, and then they do communities of practice for teachers and understanding the class observation, as well as for leaders in community-based programs about using the tool and how to make improvement.
Well, thank you for teeing up the professional learning piece so much, because I think we're really seeing the impact of this in our statewide data. So this is C3 survey data from May 2025. And we can see that the departure rate for educators and CPPI programs, partner programs, is many percentage points lower, kind of across every educator position. And, I think we know the kinds of professional development opportunities that are happening in these programs, and it's pretty interesting to see that impact here.
There are some places where there's a commitment to certain sort of salary thresholds and some other pieces that might also impact it, but that's not universal across CPPI communities. The decisions about those details are varied. But one thing that is consistent is the expectation that there is a meaningful investment in professional learning.
And just to flag that I think it's 90%, almost all, or 95, I can't recall the exact percent, but almost all CPPI programs that are community-based providers are receiving C3 grant funding. So, and then the other quality piece that we've mentioned a couple of times is the provision of special education services in a community, inclusive, community-based setting for families. So in FY25, 190 CPPI enrolled children with IEPs received services from an itinerant team in a community-based preschool. And that does not include the children who are being supported through multi-tiered support services. There's more children that are
and
being
one thing that
supported
we're
as well.
hearing from districts is because part of what's supporting this is bringing in the itinerant teams to the classroom so they can also work with the educators, but also in many places bringing in special education educators to work with and support the CPPI classroom educators and learning how to differentiate instruction and really respond to the needs of the children in their classroom. That leads to the tiered system of support that Virginia was reflecting. And we hear reports that there are lower rates of referral for IEPs because many students' needs are actually being met through that approach, and also that just generally transportation costs drop because you no longer have to bus kids back and forth, which many districts do. So there are a number of benefits to this approach, but it takes something like CPPI to provide the resources and the structure to start trying something new out.
Heard from a lot of the parents and some of our CBPI. I mean, we heard definitely from the school districts that, and I'll be interested to hear from the Quincy partnership, who has a very unique and strong approach around special education, that, we heard from the superintendents and the schools. We know the kids before they come, and we know how to group them. We know what their needs are. We know how to meet them. There's no children entering without the schools already knowing who they are and what needs they may have and how to meet them. And then we also heard from many parents who might not otherwise have been able to take advantage of the special education services because they were offered 2 hours a day at a time and location that they couldn't take time off of work, or they had a sibling in one of the community-based programs and the siblings were able to stay together because of the itinerant services. There was at least one district where we heard that it avoided 11 different buses coming to the community-based program, taking kids from the community-based programs to the public schools in the middle of the day, missing important transitions, lunch, sometimes snack, but certainly the continuity of the relationships. And so really excited about the promise of what the special education services can do kind of for the children, for the educators that are in those classrooms, and even for the children as their trajectory goes on. In Somerville, they also shared data about the number of kids who were getting special education interventions in early childhood that didn't need it once they got to kindergarten. So I think really rich opportunities in this area of what CPPI is doing for our communities.
And then one other area of data that we're working on, we don't have it, is just understanding why children leave. We're really focused on reducing expulsion in CPPI programs and it's often the program's not a good fit. And understanding what's really happening and making sure that CPPI is a grant that supports children in finding the right educational context is a really important work. part of the work. So we are also looking at the enrollment data and why children are leaving. We have that information and focusing in on conversations at the community level around how to make sure everybody is being well served, and that if there are expulsions happening, we're aware of them and working on them.
And lastly, just as we're monitoring some of these data points, we found it grantees do an extraordinary amount of work to get us this information, and so we want to make sure that it's back in their hands to use in their implementation of CPPI. So we have launched this dashboard in the last year that is grantee facing right now, that allows them to kind of track their own progress on some of these key metrics over time, look at the kind of construction of their CPPI program in the context of their community as a whole, compare it to other programs across the state. And so that is a tool that we've begun providing for them for their implementation as well.
So as we look ahead to sort of where we're going with CPPI, first of all, I think that the team continues to really focus on supporting and strengthening the joint leadership models that we're building at the local level. Definitely one area of focus this year has been building the capacity to develop strategic leadership teams that have joint leadership coming from the community-based partners and the district. It's a work in progress. Those are complicated relationships and require very particular skill sets that we're trying to build. But the goal is to continue to develop that structure so that the leadership is in place to think strategically about what's happening across the community, the direction the grant is going, the way funding is being allocated, and to continue the technical assistance around the data to support that type of strategic decision-making and planning and bring that data to the teams making these decisions at the same time or supporting the functioning of that type of strategic planning. Governor Healy's budget also provides an opportunity for expansion. First of all, if we do get that funding, we will be able to bring in the additional gateway cities, the 7 remaining, through first planning grants as the first step into the program, and then over time you build to early implementation and full implementation. And then for our current grantees, particularly those in early implementation, providing opportunities to both build and deepen the implementation across all the priorities. Often districts will start by focusing on one and then over time building to others, but also expanding to new programs and new classrooms in those districts as well. So that is where we are going.
So we are eager to invite up our community panel. So any clarifying questions or from the board?
Questions, comments on the board?
Yeah, so I'll just thank you, Jocelyn, because I know that towards the end you acknowledged that these are complicated relationships between obviously the district, public school districts, and community providers, and they are all equal partners. I just have to acknowledge on behalf of the field that there are some programs that are high functioning because they have certain components that actually are key to making those relationships work equally. Or with equity, I should say. So I just have to acknowledge that partnerships look different across the state right now. And I will also acknowledge that our commissioner is very aware of that and she has met with providers about it. So thank you. And that, like you said, it's really delicate because we are working with 2 very grounded systems, the district and community providers in these gateway cities. And we don't want to destabilize anything that's already happening that's good. I do think that there is potential to destabilize the community provider system here. And it's not an elephant in the room, it's well known. So we just want to make sure, this is our place. EEC is community providers, regulating agency. And we are counting on, as providers, we're counting on EEC specifically to just moderate those partnerships very specifically so that, there is equity amongst all the partners and that there is hopefully greater impact. I think there is possibility of greater impact. I think, nobody knows the community needs better than, they're very in tune with the community needs. The community providers are, and they offer services that really nobody else does. So I think this is a powerful partnership. I'm saying that the possibilities are really good. I just want to acknowledge that EEC's guidance in terms of how these partnerships feel while also acknowledging that flexibility is needed because every community needs something different. It's really important. So thank you for clarifying that.
Well, it is my pleasure to welcome our.
Oh, we have
wait,
one more.
sorry.
Dr.
Oh,
Legis.
sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, I have two questions. So one is, and I think the last time you were up here, I asked the same question. So my apologies for a repeat, but I'm curious if there's an update on how you're thinking about documenting these different models. Like to, I think Maria's point, there are different models across the state. What I'm curious about is what does that documentation of best practices look like that we can look to over time to understand what works here and why. And maybe my community that has not yet been awarded a grant might see ourselves reflected in that. And that may be a model that we start with, right? And so what does that look like and what's the update with?
So we have lots of information about what's happening at the local level. I mean, there's just a lot of reporting on what's going on. The last RFR the most recent grant that we put out actually was in some way, in part, a compilation of years of experience working with grantees. So we're saying, okay, let's lay out there what we know is effective and the things that communities should be doing. We've mapped out stages of implementation in far more detail around what do you have to do first before you get to the second thing and how much can you really take on at one point in time. So a lot of that information, those sequences of expectations from a programmatic perspective reflect the work that the team has been doing. But I don't think it's done. And I think that it is an ongoing process of continuing to learn from the work that's been done. And I think better map out also some of the variation, like you could do it this way or you could do it this way. So it's ongoing. We do actually have a partnership right now with the team from
University?
Yeah, from looking at analyzing some of this information and supporting us in better understanding some of the nuances through qualitative work with the information because it is time consuming.
Yeah, thank you. The second question that I have is, and the commissioner started with the fact that the goal here is to provide families with all the range of choices at high quality as much as possible, right? Available to them in their own local communities. And so I'm curious, amongst the CPPI grantees, how many of them actually reflect the mixed deliveries, the full range of mixed delivery options in their local communities?
In terms of across all the different program types and options
Yes.
that families would have.
I mean, most, I would say most most grantees have a mix of community-based providers and public school classrooms.
Inclusive of
It's the
family
engagement of the family
childcare.
child
Yeah,
care
yeah.
that is-
I mean,
Yeah.
all are the model is mixed delivery to the extent that we're reaching 2 providers versus many, many more providers is still kind of where we're working. But I think it's just 2 communities that are three communities
now.
that are including family child care in the CPPI model. Yeah.
And we are actively supporting more communities to add family childcare, and many are interested.
And I think that's a place where if you have some communities leading on that, it's an opportunity to then build the shared knowledge around, okay, how do you do this work? Because it is different than working with a center-based program.
Yeah, and I would just point to the fact that those communities that are embracing like the full range already, whether it's that they're adding in over time or they've started with that full range at the outset, I think this is how we look to what really happens, right? Like what really happens when we support this full range and how do we do it? And so like just understanding those models, I think are pretty key, and following along with them will be, I think, helpful to communities in the future.
I have one last comment because I'm the most excited about this. What I'm most excited about is the possibility of data gathering we are now able to track children from preschool through 3rd grade. So this is great. We've never necessarily linked community provider children to 3rd grade assessment results, and this allows us to do that.
Yes, it does.
Virginia's very excited about that too.
Yes.
We've built the data sharing agreements that we would need to do that. Those are in place. So I think there's an opportunity for a lot of really interesting future work on that.
Any other questions or comments? All right, we'll welcome our guests.
So I'm very excited to welcome our partners from the Quincy Public Schools and their community-based partners here with us today. From the Quincy Public Schools, we have Superintendent Mulvey and Assistant Superintendent Perkins joining us. And we also have Heather Reichel from QCAP, Quincy Community Action Program, and Nicole Caldwell from Campus Kinderhouse, Janice Boudreau from South Shore Stars Preschool, and Sonia Nesbitt from South Shore YMCA. And they have a lot of great information. They are one of our early implementation grantees, so they've only been at this a year and a half, but you'll be blown away by what they have to share.
Thank you. And so as our community partners come up, I also want to recognize that Donna Trainum from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, who is a key partner around the Commonwealth Preschool Partnership Initiative, is here with us today. So Donna, do you want to just raise your hand so that you are? Great, thank you. I was out in Quincy, I guess it was April last year, because it was STEM week, and we were out visiting Q Care's after school program. Because they have some amazing STEM activities going on. And at the same time, we had an opportunity to meet with the superintendent and the assistant superintendent and some of the community partners from Quincy. And we were just blown away by the work that was happening. I know you are only in early implementation, but the way you've approached this in partnership and the leadership from the district and the community partners who have come to the table, we couldn't wait to come back to Quincy. And we said at the time, like, can we come back and share what you're doing? And they said yes. So thank you so much for joining us today and for your good work.
It's okay to begin.
Please.
Okay. Good afternoon, Chair Balsido, Commissioner Kershaw, and members of the board. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Kevin Mulvey, and I serve as superintendent of the Quincy Public Schools. I would like to express our sincere gratitude to the Department of Early Education and Care and the board, of course, for awarding Quincy the Commonwealth Preschool Partnership Initiative grant. This grant has been transformational for our district and for the families we serve. Through this partnership, we've been able to expand access to high-quality preschool opportunities and strengthen the systems that support our youngest learners. It has allowed us to deepen collaboration with community-based early education partners, while also building stronger alignment between early childhood programs and our public schools. I would also like to take a moment to recognize the many people who make this work possible. We are deeply grateful to the educators at our community partner programs and to the dedicated preschool educators within the Quincy Public Schools who work every day to support our youngest learners. Their commitment, expertise, and care are what truly brings this partnership to life for our children and our families. In particular, I'd like to thank the community partners who are here with us today. Heather Reichel, Program Director at Head Start in Quincy. Nicole Caldwell, Program Director at Campus Kinderhouse. Sonia Nesbitt, Program Director at the South Shore YMCA State Street Early Learning Center. Janice Boudreau, Program Director at South Shore Stars in Quincy. I would also like to acknowledge the leadership within our own district who have helped make this work possible, some of whom are here with me today. Dr. Erin Perkins, Assistant Superintendent, Michael Marani, Senior Curriculum Director, and Monique Antonelli, CPPI Grant Coordinator, as well as many others who help make this work possible. Their commitment to collaboration and to building a strong early childhood system has allowed us to fully realize the opportunities that this grant provides. We are grateful for the Commonwealth's continued investment in early child education and for the leadership of this board in prioritizing equitable access to high-quality preschool. The CPPI grant has allowed Quincy to build a stronger, more connected early childhood system that will benefit our students and families for years to come. Thank you again for your partnership and for your commitment to the youngest learners in our community. Thank you so much. With that, I'll hand it over to Dr. Perkins.
Thank you, Superintendent Mulvey. Thank you for having us here today. It's really a pleasure to be here to talk about the work with the CPPI grant. And I think, you kind of set it up very nicely for us because with your comments around community providers, because for me right now, that's what I would like to focus on is the work that we've done with our community partners. So, I heard the comments about, sometimes those relationships, can be a little tough to navigate, here or there. We are very, very fortunate in Quincy. We do not have that. So when we received this grant, I happen to have known Heather and I were talking. I think we pretty much started our careers together with the IPPL grant, and we've kind of come full circle. So we've seen lots of different iterations. So it was absolutely just made sense to have Heather join our team. We reached out to a number of different providers, all of whom were eager and ready to join. When we started this grant, I don't think any of us really knew what it was going to look like, in the end. But we knew, and I heard the research. We appreciate the research, because we all know that when you're thinking about students who are going to, potentially could have academic struggles or special education needs, the best way to narrow the achievement gap is to intervene as early as possible with high quality instruction, right? And access to high quality materials. We have around 750 students that come into our kindergarten every year. We have our own district-based preschool that services about 300 3 and 4 year olds. When we know we have at least 750 4-year-olds that are somewhere out in the community that are going to be coming to us in kindergarten. And more than likely, a large majority of them are at our providers' pre-Ks. So I think that what this grant, our partnership is amazing. And what this grant has enabled us to do is really, when you talk about the mixed methodology, is to rethink how we are providing our preschool services and our access to our students in our district. So for a very long time, as long as I've been in the district, we have had a 2.5 hour a day, twice a day model that services 15 children, half of whom are on IEPs and half of whom are not. And that, as we all know, I'm sure, I'm a working mom. That is not a conducive schedule for working parents. And so this grant has allowed us, and I won't steal their thunder, because I know that they'll talk about the things that we've been able to do. I think we're all excited about the prospect of what more can we do to provide access. This is we feel like we're at the beginning, I think. And so it allowed us to now have the itinerant team, which has been, as the superintendent said, transformational for our district. That we have, in particular, one of the things that we saw the most when we were talking about starting this grant was that the majority of our students who were being referred to us or coming to us or with concerns, it was speech. That was number one concern, hands down. And we also know that students who present with speech issues when they're 2 or 3 or 4 have a greater likelihood of developing future reading problems, right? So how do we provide those services? Because many of them were not able to access our program. So they were either saying no to services for many different reasons. Campus Kinderhouse is right next door to one of our largest pre-Ks in the city, and we weren't doing anything with Campus Kinderhouse before this grant. Now we have a speech therapist who's in and out of Nikki's building. We have our special educator who's consulting on social emotional needs. We just received an increase. Thank you so very much. That's allowing us to be able to contract some additional behavior support, because that's what our partners told us that they needed. So we have actually contracted with South Shore Autism, and they're going to be going in and pushing in and providing direct behavioral support in our community-based partners. And we're very excited that we were also able to set aside some money to support tuition costs for the families and students in our community-based partners. So I could literally go on and on and on about the benefit of this work, and really excited about the future, about hopefully, we've been talking about it, eventually partnering with them and offering full day pre-K collaboratively, either at one of their sites or in one of our buildings, with a combination of their staff and our staff. And that's the dream. And so we're hoping that we get there. And with that, I will turn it over to Nikki.
Thank you very much. Hi, my name is Nicole Caldwell. I'm the director of Campus Kinderhouse in Quincy. I've been at CKH for 17 years, and this is my 16th year as director. My time at CKH has provided me with opportunities to work with thousands of preschool students and families. As a preschool, our primary goal is to prepare students to enter kindergarten. And a challenge in reaching that goal is the fact that every child is unique and has unique needs. Preschool, for many children, is one of the first opportunities to identify needs and develop a plan to meet those needs. Unfortunately, many private schools do not have the resources to provide additional support in the classroom. Our teachers do an excellent job meeting each student's needs to the best of their ability, but most do not have the training or experience that comes with all these amazing specialists. There can be a disconnect between private schools and the city's public schools, and it can leave us feeling sometimes that like we're on an island. CPI support has been a true blessing to CKH. Monique, Cleona, and Kristen are professionals that I've come to admire due to their exceptional knowledge and guidance. They have been a bridge between CKH and public schools. I'd like to share a few ways of these professionals provide invaluable services to CKH. Typically, our students, I know someone mentioned it already, have to leave CKH, travel, and then come back to CKH. And in that, they lose valuable time in learning and structure for their day. CPPI has allowed Cleona to work with these students as part of a normal school day. She provides help for their speech and language needs and communicates with both the parents and the teachers to collaborate on a plan that will lead to school readiness. Kristen has provided guidance on working with children who exhibit behavior issues. In addition, even tonight, she's leading a transition to kindergarten parent information night at our school, and we're excited to have that for all Quincy public, Quincy residents that will be going to kindergarten in the fall. Monique, who's behind me, has been a wonderful overseeing the program. She combines hands-on work with the children, supports for both the staff and families, and facilitates, I'm so excited to talk about you, Monique, collaboration with all parties involved. She has supplied both myself and my staff with numerous techniques and strategies that can be used to meet each child's needs. Personally, I want to thank you all for giving me the opportunity to work with these amazing women. Their presence through CPPI has enhanced our ability to work towards meeting the needs for each of these students. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to be part of the CPI program. Thank you so much. There you go.
Thank you. I don't want to repeat a lot of what she said, but I do feel. So my name is Janice Boudreau. I've been working with early childhood for about 18 years. I've been with South Shore Stars Quincy Preschool for 2.5 years. I actually sought them out because I'm very invested in working with families in need. It's near and dear to my heart personally, so it's very rewarding to come to school each day. I'm proud, I proudly enjoy going to work each day. As hard the days can be, I do try to find that one glimpse of happiness in each day and really strive to do that with the staff because it can be hard days. Before that, I did work in a private preschool, which truly was just a half-day preschool. So to come into STARS and then for a couple of years and help rejuvenate our program, but then to have CPPI come in and really help some of our families has been amazing. We have 2 other centers in neighboring towns that do not have this grant right now. And so we have a program director and an education coordinator. And where we've had transitions, our education coordinator has moved up to our program coordinator. But she has said having the CPPI grant here has taken a load off of her everyday work experience because we know that I could fill out if I know a child needs a referral, I could fill it out quickly, and then Monique and Cleona will follow up and provide the necessary needs to follow up with the parents and get these referrals and get these services started rather quickly. Before that, it took probably about 2 months to do, and as you know, most of you know that that's a long time for a little one. And for me, it's important that each child, as we are talking about speech, is they need to be able to speak up for themselves. So a lot of my students are that English is their second language. They're learning English for the first time when they enter our building. And so it's even more important for them to be able to speak up for themselves when they go into school, because a lot of them come from families that their moms, their dads, their caregivers, English is not their first language. And I deal with a lot that it's very hard for us. We're using our phones to translate a lot of times to be able to talk with them. I'm also fortunate I do have a lot of staff that can help me translate as well. So for us, our goals with CPPI is to keep growing, providing the services for the children. As an example, last year, I did have a student that came in to us and said, that needed speech, and the mom had to work, and she's like, I can't take the time for a half hour of speech once a week and bring him there. So we're just not going to do it. And that was like, whoa, we can't do this. How are we going to make this work? And of course, I go to my education coordinator before we have the CPPI. How are we going to do this? What more services can they get? Can we get them in? We got to figure this out. And then CPPI started, and we were able to get him back into the services. Mom was so elated by this. And I'm happy to say that he doesn't need speech. He's actually had his exit meeting, and he's not doing, he's not needed anymore, and he's doing really well. And mom could not be happier. And this would not have happened without the CPPI. This little one, I think, would still be struggling with it because he wouldn't have been able, he only needed speech. So when you only need that one service, it's hard to get all the children that she mentioned into these buildings. And there are a lot of them that need it. So that is our goal. So and Monique has been such a great person in our classrooms. A lot of our children, a lot of our teachers are not educated in special education. So they come in like, we just don't know what to do. And it's not their faults, that's another whole story, right. Another agenda for another day. But Monique has come in and given them some great tools and some great advice, and they use it. They practice it. They use it. It's not just one day. It's day after day after day. And we're starting to see the results from it with the children. And again, that would not happen without this grant. So again, thank you for everybody who has made this possible.
Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sonia Nesbitt, and I am the director of the State Street Early Learning Center at the Quincy Y. I've been with the Quincy Y for about 2.5 years. This May will make 3 years. On a personal note, I'll have to say, I feel like and then I'll kind of get more into details, but I know last year I did I did a program through UMass Boston, and I had to create like a project of ideal world and early ed. And one of the things that I shared, I said, it really would be nice if every childcare center can have specialists that could really just be there so that when the teachers need help, it's like, whoop, here you are, and they could really see what's going on. And so it's really interesting because when, the idea of CPPI came about, I was like, oh, this is kind of ideal because this is kind of, where I was going. But it's, it's been really helpful to have the CPPI as a part of the State Street Early Learning Center. I know the teachers are always very grateful. It's nice to be able, usually if there's a behavior, we'll have to be like, oh, let's reach out to this and let's reach out to that. And it takes forever. Gratefully with CPPI, it's always nice that I can literally just, put in, or I can just reach out and be like, hey, this is what we're seeing. Can you come in? And it's nice because literally in 2 days, boom, you have someone, and the teachers, they love that. Even if it's a situation where, one of, Kristen, great, she comes in, she'll literally come in, talk to the teachers, give them tips, techniques, like, oh, this is what you can do. And I know a lot of the teachers, they are grateful for that because I know in this day and age, one of the things that we see a big struggle is the behaviors. And it's, believe me, it makes a difference because not to, take your shine or anything, but as you guys have shared, it's hard. the behaviors are hard. The teachers, they are not specialists, and they will tell you, I'm not a specialist. And I'm like, I understand. But we have to work together and, see how to best. So it really is nice to have that support. I know the State Street Early Learning Center last spring, we were, thankfully and gratefully, we were able to pilot the Frog Street curriculum and in one of our pre-K classrooms. And I have to say, the teachers were amazed. They loved it. And so thankfully right now, with, extra funding and stuff, we are working through with AIR to go through the review. And the hope is that we could actually purchase the curriculum, and hopefully this upcoming fall, we can implement it with training, just making sure that all the teachers are on board. And it's something that, we want to do as a team. And so I know the teachers are excited because currently the curriculum that we use, they complain, it's a lot of prepping and it's a lot. Like, the kiddos are the priority. So like if they could have more time to really, spend with the kids and not have to worry about, I have to look through this binder and I have to do this, it really takes away a lot of that load from them. So they are excited, and, we are going to work through this together and hope that this new coming school year in September, that all both preschool and pre-K classrooms at the SSELC are able to implement that. So that is, I'm excited to share that because I know the teachers, they are really excited, and if they're excited, I'm even more excited. So, so I can tell you the State Street Early Learning Center, we are truly grateful for the CPPI, and I'm hoping that we can continue to build that partnership and just continue to grow because, at the end of the day, these kiddos, it's really important that we do what we have to do to make sure that they're all set and they can be successful in the future. So yeah, thank you for that.
I'm Heather Reichel. I'm the program director at QCAP Head Start. And as Erin mentioned, we've been working together for probably close to 20 years, and it has been a majority of my career, at least here. I'm going to take the focus on families and how CPPI has impacted our families. So we are, as a Head Start program, comprehensive program that focuses on the health, nutrition, well-being, education, obviously, of all of the children, but particularly families, and making sure that the families are getting what they need in order to support their little learners and give them that boost that they need. So as a Head Start program, we are expected to have 10% of our children with an IEP every year. We've seen double that in the last few years, not a problem. Basically, the families really count on the accessibility and the comprehensive services that programs like ours provide. We service 5 towns as our Head Start program, and 2/3 of the children in preschool come from Quincy. And of those 2/3, about 25% of those children have an IEP. So, which is a pretty big number. And we're fortunate to be able to service half of those children on site now, which was not the case before. So they are no longer having to go back and forth. They're able to get the services that they need right on site. And then in addition to that, over the years, what we've seen is we've had parents that are resistant to having their children evaluated by the public schools. Some of it's due to time, some of it's due to the overwhelming the process, and some of it is due to the inconvenience or just even transportation. Most recently, we had a family who didn't want to put their baby on the bus if they received services. So with that, for a year, we worked with that family to try to get them to have that evaluation by the public school. Multiple ways, different people, different times, building relationships. Along comes CPPI, the second year of that child's enrollment, and we have the opportunity to screen that child right on site for speech. He gets picked up, he's able to get his services on site. It opened the door to have the full evaluation done of the child, but it alleviated and built that trust with that mom. So in addition to that, like, it builds that bridge to Quincy Public Schools for those families that they may not have been comfortable having before. So now we're a safe, secure place. We can do that gentle handoff, and now we've built that bridge to the public schools where that child's going to be going next. So in addition to that, we continue to do the on-site screenings, connecting them to the SLP. Makes a huge difference when the services are provided in the same place where the children attend on a regular basis. There's a lot of trust there. It's easier for them to come and go. Parents don't need to worry about transportation. They don't need to worry about transportation. They don't have to worry about arranging their schedule. It's right there during their regular day. by offering the services on site and working collaboratively with the families, we're able to remove the barriers that the families often face, and we ensure that they receive the early interventions early enough that they're able to bridge those gaps, which just means success for them in the future. We're really grateful to be a part of the CPPI. Again, like I said, it's been over 20 years that we've been a partnership. We've always said we've had a strong relationship with Quincy Public, and somehow it actually has strengthened, perhaps even at a higher level. So we're really grateful for this this opportunity. So thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, comments from the board? Nikki.
How are the specialists going to be sustained after the grant? It sounds like this has been a really big, thing for all of you. And is there, I'm guessing that the grant comes to an end at some point, right?
Well, we call it a grant, but it doesn't have and it goes on like a kind of by the line item language, kind of a cycle, but our commitment is to stay with the districts. And so, our commitment is really, and it's interesting because it has it has a sort of a build up over time. So we start with a planning grant and then an early implementation grant and then a full implementation. And the board should know full implementation right now is $1 million. So, which in some communities goes a long way and in other communities, not as far. So,
and it's $1 million regardless of population.
Right now, that's how the program is structured. So when you see the grants that are sort of at full implementation, whether it's a Lawrence or Sandwich or Quincy, at full implementation, it'd be $1 million. But we're in learning mode and we're on a journey. The real goal is universally accessible early education across the state, starting with our gateway cities. And so as we work closely with the communities who are succeeding, who have figured out the model, who are reaching those kids before they get to school with the services and the skills they need before they get there, we'll learn more. So we're really committed to sticking with the community. So we call it a grant, but it doesn't have a timeline. They will have to reapply on a regular cycle for it, but unless we've seen a grant not succeeding, it would be our commitment, subject to appropriation, I should say, to continue supporting all the communities. Our goal is really to go deeper and further, both statewide, but also within the communities.
That's really helpful. Thanks. Yeah, because it sounds like great work, but you would hate for
you want to hate to pull it out, right? Yeah.
Right. Great. And then my other question is sort of about how families experience the system in terms of how they sort of approach and become involved in your programs. Is there some kind of centralized way that families are accessing pre-K, or are they sort of going to all of the because I can say from my own experience in Boston with my children that it's not, and I'm just wondering if there are if you all have kind of figured that out, or if it's lots of different sort of entry points for families.
I think that's like one of the big benefits of this grant. So I would say it would probably have been a similar experience to what you had in Boston. But now with this grant, because we are able, we've been building this itinerant team and they're in these pre-Ks, we have developed like a process, and they could talk about it, as from a firsthand experience, where they may start with like a screener, and then they'll decide, okay, now the student needs to be tested. We think this child needs to be tested, and we're doing it at the centers. So
yes, that's great. And before they even get to the center. So how do they decide if they're going to a preschool at the public school or the Y or the Head Start?
Mm-hmm.
Like, are those, how do they choose? How do they figure out those different systems, and is there one application or one process that gets them into all? Because in Boston right now, it's 3 or 4 different systems that you would have to all apply to separately. And I'm just wondering if you guys have figured out like how do families enroll in pre-K?
Yes.
What does that look like?
So for us, it is all separate for enrolling. We have a screening process in the spring, and parents, sign up, and we do have a wait list. I will say that a lot of times we do end up losing children, because of our schedule, because we're only the 2.5 hour a day, integrated half day program. I think that's very difficult for families. I'm not sure how these guys,
So we have it for us, South Shore Stars. We have, like I said, two other centers in neighboring towns, and we also have an after-school program in all 3 towns that we serve. So we have a huge enrollment department. So, and ours is income-based. So there is a statewide list that we go off of, but there are also families that if we'll just cold call and say, I'm interested in getting my child in your program, where ours is in North Quincy, right around the corner from here. It's it goes by the neighbors. Like we get a lot of our families from just neighbors around because they're, it's very, most of our neighbors are Chinese, and so Chinese families, and they just all talk amongst each other. This is where my child went. This is where, so that's where they come, and that's how we do ours. Yeah.
To piggyback off of what Aaron was saying, though, is we actually do partner quite a bit. We have children that will attend our program and Quincy Public. So they are transported between the two. So while there's not a one-point access, if families do struggle with that 2 hour and they're eligible, they may be in our Head Start program as well. So,
that's
that's a
interesting. So they would
large,
do
like I
both.
said,
They do.
they could do both. So they're very fortunate. They do have transportation between the two. So we do have a good probably 25 children that are transported or that are getting some services back and forth too.
Yeah.
So it extends their day a little bit.
Yeah, my students literally walk back and forth. We're right next door, so
Yeah.
it's great.
We have
It's
a
a great.
couple as well, with that.
Okay.
Not as many
So there's
as
kind of the
25, but a few.
Yeah, I would say like with Campus Kinderhouse, which again is like literally right next door, it did not exist before this grant.
Yeah.
So that was a
Yeah.
benefit.
That's great.
Head
That's
Start,
awesome.
we've had a partnership for a long time, but with Nikki, this definitely was a result of the grant.
So I just want to stipulating the grants, communities, not just Quincy, but others may talk about additional resources that would be needed if there were more requirements. But your comments, Nikki, make me think maybe one of the things about having it be a local partnership is you could talk about a single point of access around preschool enrollment as part of the grant activities. Again, I recognize that might require additional resources, but thinking about your comments, if we are creating a sort of system of universally accessible preschool at the local level, certainly how a family finds out about it and enrolls in it should also be system-wide.
Yeah.
Carolyn.
I just think it's fantastic that the access has been expanded to a number of children, many children that would otherwise not have access to specialized services and the support for your team. So it's more than a partnership. It's an extension of what exists for some is now being available to many, many more. And, a lot of preschools are half day and, some of them are like Monday, Wednesday, Friday. That doesn't work for families. So it's more about a choice. You need your child to be in a program all day. So you have to choose a different type of a program, assuming you're not even on the wait list. That's what happens a lot in Boston. And then, bringing the services to the children. I mean, it just makes all the sense in the world. So it's absolutely thrilling to finally see that happen as someone that's, I'm the executive director of the Autism Commission, and I've worked in special education for several decades. But the issue there is that you bring the services to the child. You meet the child's needs where they are and when they are, right? And I just think it's absolutely fantastic and long overdue. So congratulations to all of you. And thank you for the work you do.
It's always helpful to hear these kind of qualitative stories when we look at just data. And I was having the same reaction of just you, I think, Nikki, is that right? When you were sharing the story of just not putting a student on the bus and thinking about like, what amount of time is just logistically is that out of that student's day and not learning, right? And the power of having that time back. And it also makes me think just from a district perspective, like there's probably also a cost efficiency there too, right? Where we're right, like it's less bus transportation, it's less like, and so, we don't tend to think of it. I don't want to lead on that, but like, it just feels like in a lot of ways, it's centers student learning, it centers the time, and oh, by the way, it might even save the district some resources, right?
And
On
it's
just
least
kind of
disruptive to the
yeah,
child.
that's what yeah. It's so interesting. Like when you hear it play out in real time in the scenario that you laid out, it's like yeah, right? Like that makes a lot of sense.
Well, and you're saving the district resources also in the long term, like you
Right.
all were pointing out, if the children are getting this resources early on and getting
Right.
the support that they need, then they can enter, later on and not need it and, not struggle with reading. or
That's
whatever it is.
the
So,
speech
yeah.
example
Yeah.
that you
Yeah.
use. Yeah, like yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. Dr. Lucas.
Two questions. And, this is a unique opportunity for us. You all are in your early implementation phase, and there's not that many communities that are. And so what I'm curious about is, from the start, from the point of when you were like, hey, we should apply to this, we got to get folks together, all the way to now, is there something that you're proud of that you did in planning that you want to highlight for the rest of the Commonwealth, that like, we did this, it really worked for us, it might not work for you, but like this, we're so glad we did that at the outset in the design phases and the application as we're starting up?
I think I would say I would say two things we're very very proud of. I think we're very proud of the leadership team that we created, and that includes Monique and Mike sitting back here, and Jen Leary and a whole bunch of others, and these all, and Sarah Morrison from Q Care is on our leadership team. So we have a really and we're adding more people from Quincy want to join. We want you, and so I definitely think that has been tremendous because it has developed those partnerships so that we had relationships before, but as Heather said, not like this, and so that's why when you talked at the beginning about the relationships between community partners and the public school, we I think have taken an approach like we're all in this together. Our job is to get as many students in Quincy access to high quality preschool, right? That's just hands down, that is what we want. That is our goal. So I think we're really, really, I would say really proud of that. But also I think the itinerant team, we did that. We actually, I think, called Sekile at the time. I think I called Sekile because I wasn't sure if that was going to be allowed when I was writing the grant. And I was like, this sounds wonderful. This would be such a great idea. And, because the caseloads are really high in the pre-K and the therapists are stretched so thin. And so for many reasons, it just made sense. The evals, we're doing 200 evals a year, something crazy, 250 evals a year in pre-K. And that's only a fraction probably of the students that we should be servicing. So when we started, we were very lucky because at the point in the year, it's not always easy to hire speech therapists. I'm sure you all know. And so at the point in the year when we did that, we found Cleona, who actually had an early childhood background. It just worked. And I would say because I think if we hadn't had the success of that, it would have that could have set us back. Yes. You know what I mean? So the fact that we had Cleona, we had Monique who came on as the grant coordinator, which I was very thankful for when we finally were able to get a grant coordinator, and so having the two of them be able to go in and really develop, even further those relationship with the community partners, I think that success was instrumental because now we added Kristen this year and we're talking about if hopefully we continue the funding and could we add an OT, could we add an additional special education teacher or a BCBA or a counselor, whatever, we'll work with, all of these very talented women and figure out, what makes the most sense for our community. But I would say those two things.
Just on the, I'd be remiss if I didn't thank the mayor of Quincy and the school committee because without their support, we wouldn't be here today. A couple of years ago, through the mayor's support and the school committee's support, we kind of leveraged a lot of the ESSER money to help develop and create a new learning center, the Dr. Rick DeCristofaro Learning Center, which gave us the space to be able to do a lot of what we're doing here. So it is extremely helpful to have an extremely supportive mayor and school committee that kind of gives us the facilities and supplemental funding, as well as all the funding that you all give us to make this a reality as well.
I'm not to answer the question but one of the things that we see in successful communities like one here in Quincy is that it's a mindset about universally accessible early education, which is the responsibility of the whole community, instead of a sort of how are we going to manage this grant? How are we going to divide it up? What is the budget and how are we going to spend it? It's much more about school committee, the mayor, the superintendent, the community providers coming together and saying, like, what do we as a community need to do for the kids and families? And we got these 2.5 hour double sessions that aren't working. And we got kids with really like deep needs in speech and behavior. And how do we do that? And so you coming together in a shared power and shared understanding of what all parts of the system with kind of leadership that thinks about it on a community-wide level and less like sort of a grant management. And you all have blended funds from different sources. So CPI is not the single source of funds too. So I think that's one of the elements that we've noticed. And the other is that there's high level leadership in the school districts that has like this assistant superintendent that has this as part of their portfolio and make sure that it's high on the district's priority list as well. So
yes, I know that it sounds like that this grant has really been able to help you all not just coordinate, but like really come together like you were talking about. And it sounds like that in and of itself is a level up on top of all of the level ups. We're in the budget process and we don't have appropriations and I'm not promising anything, but if you could level up even more, right? Like if there was a next level to reach, what would you want? What would you need to reach that next level? What would that look like?
I mean, I can tell you the next level. I'll speak personally. I don't want to speak for all of them, but personally, what I would love to see is I would love to see us offer 6 hour a day, 5 day a week, free pre-K that is a collaboration, and maybe it's like part of the day is with one of our preschool teachers in the district, and then the outside the community provider comes in, because you have to think about contractual things and all of that, which we're kind of governed by a different contractual system than these guys. And so I think like figuring out being creative, again, the grant has made us think outside the box. So are there ways that we can work collaboratively so that a child could have, a public school preschool teacher and also be with us 6 hours a day with the support of a campus kinder house, right? Could we all be in one space together? And that could be in Nikki's building. It could be in one of our buildings, and where, we kind of work out that system so that, so for me, I would say that's what I would love to see, but I don't know what the rest is.
Well,
I think piggyback off of her is that, to have, free access for them. My children are 24 and 21, and preschool for them was a whole lot different than what it is today. So you went in, you played for 2.5 hours and you had a great time and you went home and that was it. Today, they really, the changes happen. Parents need to work and they want to know that their children are getting a good day or having a good day and getting something out of it. And I think, the curriculum base of going into kindergarten and playing has shifted as well, and you have full day kindergarten. So we need to prepare these children developmentally. They're not going to be able to read and all that, but we want to prepare them to be able to speak up. We want to prepare them, again, if they need services that they need, we want to get that to them. Some of our families that I have, like, it's a single family, and to pay for preschool, I've had families leave, and it's brought tears to my eyes. It's brought tears to my teacher's eyes that this child really needs to be here. They need to learn English. They need to be prepared for kindergarten. And now they're just going to go back and sit at home. And I'm not saying home isn't great, but we need to prepare them for school, for kindergarten. And so to have that, to be there 6 hours a day and have that one, if it's free, have one more thing that a parent doesn't have to worry about, that's huge for at least the families that we serve. That would be really, really big for us, for them.
Final comments? I just want to say thank you. I mean, I'm centering, one of the reasons why we do this, and I appreciate you doing this because I know you all are busy and have other things to do when you're stepping away from classrooms and schools and to be here. But I think it's really important to hear these stories because it is sort of beyond the data part of it. Like Heather, I'm thinking of that example that you shared, like the psychological safety that this has created to finally get that evaluation done on that, like that may have just cascading effects for that child's life. And what it does for families to create sort of some stability and trust within a single network versus 2 hours here, an hour, like just this constant bounce around. So to hear those stories means a lot. And so I just am grateful for the time that you guys took out of your day to share with us. And I'm thinking of your question here and your comments. Like it's clear that this is different community by community, and so but it takes leadership. Right? And it takes the mindset to the table. So Heather, Sonia, Janice, Nikki, Dr. Perkins, Superintendent Mulvey, Mike, Monique, a lot of love for Monique today. Just in the people behind you that are working on this that aren't here today, it does take leadership and it takes prioritization and it needs to be part of someone's portfolio in order for it to really amplify and exhibit what you shared with us today, which is the stories behind the policy and the thinking. This is what makes it real. And so grateful for your leadership and for just taking the time and making the time to be here with us today to share it. So thank you.
Thank you.
And I just want to add one more person who's not here, but very, very not physically in the room, but very much in the room, which is Healy Braithwaite Hall, who is our CPPI staff person and coordinator who works with Quincy and many other communities. And she is participating in a leadership institute that she earned a spot in, not surprisingly, but her work is with us in the room today. So I want to just add our thanks to her and recognition for her work with all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
We'll take a 5-minute break.
Thank you.
Sure. Welcome back, everybody. We are going to make a slight adjustment just based on time to the agenda today. We are going to move the agenda item on family, friends, and neighbor to the next meeting, and we are going to turn it over to talk about the great work of the task force. Spend the rest of our time.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'll start and then have our representatives of a very large cross-secretariat, cross-divisional project management team. We're going to share updates. So we have been here several times at the board to talk about the Interagency Task Force. So I'll just remind everyone that this was an executive order from the governor in 2024 as part of the Gateway to Pre-K agenda, which recognizes that we have a lot of really important investments to make at the Department of Early Education and Care and directly within our system, but that bringing the transformation to the early education and care system, we need to increase our competitiveness and support economic development in the Commonwealth requires a whole of government approach to identifying ways to address affordability and accessibility and quality and supply. So the governor called for every single secretariat across state government to come together, chaired by the secretaries of Education, Labor and Workforce Development, and Economic Development, to really turn over every rock across state government to identify opportunities that maybe currently exist within other secretariats or other sectors that could be brought to bear in early education and care, and to also develop new resources that might not have existed before that could be done in a cross-sector or cross-agency way that might improve, leverage, and catalyze different kinds of changes. And I have to say, from having the opportunity to now serve with the task force chairs and the members of the administration, that people have really showed up for childcare and early education as part of this process. I don't feel like there's a request we made to an agency for membership, for partnership, that didn't get a yes. So we are rounding the year 2 in the task force, and we were really pleased last week to see the release of the year 2 status update on the work of the task force. We have been sort of sharing it on social media. We've been sharing it in the venues that we have, and we do anticipate having an event, hopefully when the new Secretary of Education has started, sometime in late April or early May to really kick off year 3. So the task force is a year 3, but we'll talk a little bit at the end about it's kind of a 3-year timeline, but the work and the relationships we believe are going to go on much deeper and much longer. So we have had an amazing cross-divisional project management team that has been from our Secretary of Administration and Finance. And I'm so sorry that Dana Sullivan has a sick kid and is not able to join us today, but she has been an amazing leader over the last year and kind of really being the chief pusher of this agenda and making sure that everyone showed up at the table and continued to act on the recommendations. You will recall that we spent most of the first year in kind of a listening mode, developing of recommendations. We had 14 listening sessions. We developed 31 actionable recommendations as part of that work. And year two has been really about rolling up our sleeves and digging in. We've had, I don't know how many of these guys can maybe say, cross-agency working groups. Each recommendation had its own project management structure, and people were really committed to trying to deliver. So I'm incredibly proud of the work that we've done. I'm grateful to our partners across state government for showing up. And I'm really excited for us to share with you some of the progress and the new resources and the new opportunities that have been created through this work. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Faith Ambrose.
Thank you, Commissioner, for that lovely introduction, and good afternoon, everyone. We're really excited to share our progress and updates with you today. I'm just going to start by giving a brief overview of the report structure. When you go into the report, you'll see that it is an update on each of our recommendations, and it is divided into 4 key issue areas: access and affordability, quality, sustainable business, and workforce. Under each, you'll see the vision for each key issue area, as well as a progress bar, the recommendation language itself, the progress on that recommendation, and any next steps. In the status, you'll also see a status bar indicating the phase that that recommendation is in at this moment, whether that be scoping, developing, implementing, or integrated. Scoping just means that we're still defining the project plan and any metrics for success. Integrated simply just means that this has been incorporated by other agencies, by an agency, and the work is still ongoing, not necessarily that work is completed. Here, you'll also just see at a high level each of our recommendations, the key issue area that they are aligned to, and then, of course, their status. And I will now pass it to Jocelyn, who will start walking through some of our highlights on our recommendations.
Thank you, Faith. So I think we're going to go through a few highlights from the report and give you some examples of some of the work that has been done, supported by the task force. I'm here to focus on the work with the Division of Apprenticeship Standards on registered apprenticeships. I think, we've probably heard about us talk about apprenticeships for a while. We've been working with DAS and with the field around building out opportunities for apprenticeships in early childhood and understanding what supports are needed for that system. The task force really allowed us to accelerate that work. We are at a point where we've really developed a framework for apprenticeships that meet the current system and match the current system, but also support a movement towards the new credentialing system as well that we're developing, and working closely with DAS to ensure that registered apprenticeships are using those structures. And most excitingly, DAS received a SAVE 3 competitive grant from the federal government that is allowing us to rapidly scale the registered apprenticeship program in early childhood education. They received $5 million. 8 organizations have received the first round, which will place over 300 apprentices, and there's more to come. So that's very exciting, and again, supported by this task force collaboration that's been built.
Thank you, Jocelyn. I will now go through several other highlights, beginning with the Employer Child Care Innovation Fund grant. Thank you once again for having me. So as you may recall from last month's board meeting, I touched on... Oh, sure. I'm so sorry. So I'm Gabby Santana Goldstein. I'm the Employer Partnerships Manager at EEC. I am one of the kind of key program managers and leaders for this grant, and I'm also involved in several other projects for the task force, serve on the project management team alongside Faith. So thank you for having me. So as you may recall from last month's board meeting where I touched on the Employer Child Care Innovation Fund grant, ESIF for short, it is really a cross-agency collaboration between EEC, the Executive Office of Economic Development, and the Executive Office of Labor and Workforce, in addition to our grant administrative partner, the Commonwealth Corporation Foundation, which is within the Labor and Workforce umbrella. We've been hard at work on this now for, I guess, close to a year, which is very exciting. And so to bring it back a level, it's really the goals for this grant are threefold. The first being to expand access to affordable, high quality childcare for working caregivers in the Commonwealth. The second, to expand capacity in the early education childcare sector. And finally, to incentivize employers to advance family-friendly policies for their working caregiver employees. What I think is doubly interesting about this is it's not only a kind of cross-agency collaboration in the creation of the grant itself, but we are inviting partnership and collaborative ideas as part of that grant submission. So really what we're looking for is collaboration between an employer, groups of employers, early childhood education providers, perhaps an intermediary like a chamber of commerce or some other or nonprofit in the area that can really convene folks, and to really think about what are the needs, the regional, local needs, but then also what can be replicable and scalable should we get this amazing opportunity again, or if there's some other way to kind of continue it. So today, I'm very excited to say that the RFP went public shortly after our last board meeting, and the proposals are due this Friday, March 13th. We have held a bidders webinar. We've held office hours. They were very well attended. I thank all the applicants for coming to those, for taking their time, for sharing their questions. We got really, really good questions. And I think it's also indicative of, I think, how different really this opportunity is. It's not super straightforward, but it really invites innovation and collaboration to the table. So very, very excited, and we anticipate being able to announce and give out the awards this summer. And then, like I said, really looking at how can we replicate and scale some of these ideas moving forward. And it'll be 3 to 5 awardees in the amount of $250,000 to $1 million.
Abby, can you just say a bit about the interest you've had so far? We went through an RFI.
Yes. We did a 2-step process. So we first put out a request for an expression of interest, followed by the RFP. We received 37 expressions of interest across every region of the state. We saw every size business. We saw really wide diversity of industry. We really saw it all. We were super thrilled with what came in, and it is a closed RFP process. So only those who submitted their request for the expression of interest can submit a proposal in this phase. Yeah, but a tremendous amount of interest. I think what we learned was there were a lot of people just waiting for this opportunity to come up. They've been working on this, talking about it, and really just waiting for that opportunity. And for others, they jumped on it. They said, you know what, we haven't been working on this, but this is amazing, and let's see if we can get some partners together. And so we do anticipate folks will be some will be really shovel ready, others are a little bit more at the beginning stages of things, but we're here to support. So. Okay. I am now going to walk through a couple of slides with a number of highlights. I'm not going to speak to every single one. I will pop around a little bit, but of course, questions are welcome on anything that we're presenting on today. I think we'll just be here for a while if I speak to every single one. So here, I'd love to highlight the increased access to broadband, connected, and online. So this was a grant opportunity through the Massachusetts Broadband Institute, MBI, which is part of the Mass Tech Collaborative, a quasi-public agency under the Executive Office of Economic Development. And as it says on the slide, it's an initiative to distribute internet-enabled devices, really focus on gateway cities and rural communities, designed specifically to focus on the education sector, workforce training, and telehealth. It was really because of the partnership and collaboration that we've had with EOED through this task force that a little bell kind of went off in everyone's head and said, oh my gosh, we should definitely offer this to early childhood education educators and program leaders. And so with the help of Eugenia and many others at the agency and the program manager at MBI, a big thank you. We were able to put out a number of webinars to really get the word out, educate everybody on what was needed here. And very excited to announce that 522 devices were awarded to early education and care providers. And we did receive feedback that the applications were incredibly innovative, full of ideas, and we were just really excited about how the sector really showed up for this. So when we put something out, I think everybody responds, which is very exciting. Which brings me to expand access to the arts. So through a partnership with the Mass Cultural Council, there is going to be a publishable inventory of art and cultural institutions that can offer discounts to educators broadly. So not just K through 12, but the early education sector as well, which was something we heard very loud and clear in the listening sessions. I think this speaks not just to affordability and equity for the sector, but also just like a recognition that we're all part of, right, this education ecosystem. So very excited about that. And today, we're also very excited to, in kind of a similar vein to the MBI note, to announce an exciting grant opportunity through the Mass Cultural Council. So for this one, I'm going to read because I want to get all the details right. But today, I want to highlight an exciting grant opportunity through Mass Cultural Council, the Creative Experiences Program. Programs can apply for the grant, either $2,500 or $5,000, to support projects that incorporate the arts, humanities, and or interpretive sciences, and that take place between July 1, 2026 and June 30th, 2027. There is an information session recorded and published on Mass Cultural Council's YouTube channel. So please do take advantage of that if you feel like it's a good fit. And I think it's just one of many examples to come where grants that already exist that are really good fit for the sector are now being open to and we're being considered as grantees and applicants, which is really great. Okay. On our next slide, you've heard me talk about the Business Front Door a few times. Just to recap, the Business Front Door is a one-stop shop that the Executive Office of Economic Development created for businesses in the Commonwealth or those moving to the Commonwealth, those who want to start, grow, or move a business here. They can go there. They will get access to a human being, a navigator, concierge who can walk them through any questions or resources they may have. We have been kind of piloting this for quite some time, and we're now ready to bring on a dedicated Business Front Door navigator. That position has been posted. We've received a tremendous amount of interest, over 30 very qualified applicants, many of whom are from the early education field, which is very exciting, and have some really great experience kind of supporting other educators when it comes to really running their programs also as businesses. So if you are interested, that is posted on Mass Careers. And it's a part-time role, but it is fully dedicated to this. And yeah, it's very exciting. I'm personally pumped. I will also touch on the liability insurance highlights. So through a cross-agency work group led by the Division of Insurance, and we've now been collaborating with DOI and DCF on a monthly working group to really start to better understand the barriers and challenges that exist to being able to access liability insurance, being able to afford liability insurance, and the impact that is having on people's programs and really the business sustainability of these programs moving forward. And the goal of the working group is to begin to develop short-term and long-term solutions to address these challenges. We've looked at what other states are doing. What I will say is this is definitely a national challenge. I think everybody is experiencing it. It's complex, it is complicated, but we have all the right folks at the table. And so we're really grateful for DOI's leadership and for the opportunity to work collaboratively on this topic. And then my final highlight will be on healthcare benefits. So we have partnered with Mass Health to roll out a number of information sessions around the Mass Health Connector. And so we conducted those. They reached over 200 educators. We were very excited about the turnout and the information that was presented. What we're now doing is evolving that into its next phase. And so the working group is developing materials for a combined webinar that will include Health Connector for individuals, Health Connector for businesses, and Mass Health to give folks a full understanding of all of their options and how all of these kind of systems work together. It will be translated into multiple languages, and kind of to the commissioner's earlier point, this is really a group that's been really engaged and already starting to talk about how they can continue the engagement moving forward beyond year 2 and year 3. And with that, I will turn it back to the commissioner for what's next for the task force.
Great. Thanks so much, Gabby and Faith and Jocelyn. I think, some of these things might have happened in some ways. There would have been 27,000 devices that went out. There would be, new arts grants that are going out, and we wouldn't have made them accessible in the way that they are. There's a couple of other them where I think, we might have done the Early Childhood Employer Innovation Fund and gotten $2.5 million out from EEC, and now we have Cross Secretariat is being managed by ComCore, which has relationships with employers, and we're leveraging this $2.5 million to really demonstrate what employers can do to support their workforce. So I think we really haven't missed many opportunities to try and engage our partners. We were really fortunate. The task force, EEC, kind of on behalf of the task force, applied and got selected to be part of the Early Childhood Governance and Finance Project for 2026, which is a cohort of states. I think we were one of 8 for this particular cohort, pretty competitive, that will come together. We had $250,000 to support the work of the task force, which supports our cross-divisional project management team. But it's a cohort that stays together to really think about creative financing in early education and care. And I don't think, again, without the task force and the partnerships that we have, that would have been available to us. And it's something that can also, expedite and leverage the work of the task force as well. So we're going to be very intentional about how we go into year 3 here. We want to continue progress on the individual recommendations, going deeper and broader. New recommendations may indeed come up. We didn't talk much about the work we're doing across our higher education campuses on trying to make childcare more accessible. I think that's going to be a highlight of year 3. Want in on that, Jen? Yeah. And I think we're going to move into sort of sustainability and integration. So, if the task force sort of has an end date associated with the executive order, but we don't want the work to have that. So we'll be thinking about what the structure looks like that maintains the relationships. Early education and childcare is really now on the agenda and the thoughts of our other state agency partners. So the work is going to be to sort of how do we keep it there over time and sustain progress on the recommendations that have a longer time frame. Than just the 3 years of the executive order. So we are going to be launching year 3 probably in early May, as I said, and you all will be invited to that too. So we'll be excited to share more of the details around the recommendations and the progress then.
Questions, comments from the board?
Thank you. I just want to say this is changing the system, and it's great. I feel like I'm kind of aging myself here, but when you open in Christmas time, we open the Sears catalog and mark everything you want. And as an early education provider, I was like, oh, I need this. So each one of them that you mentioned, I thought were great. I mean, these are resources for the field. So thank you so much for opening access to all of that. Much appreciated. It's now the Amazon catalog probably, but thank you so much. This is really great.
Yeah, I'll just I think I've said this before. I think maybe I shouldn't say this again, but I think this is how people think government should work. And I know it's a complex system and it's hard and it's well intended but the intentionality and the commitment and the prioritization, Gabby, under your leadership and pulling everyone together, this is a little bit of a organizing exercise of getting people in a room to be how do we create that catalog of existing things, right? And then how do we build new ones, and how do we just think differently about this work? And it's clear that just a little bit into this work year or two, like there's real traction here, I think, to change the system and to make sure that not only our educators but our communities know that we can center early education in the community and sort of build around it, which I think is really exciting. And it, you know, I think we've done this under your leadership really well, but like it also just ensures that the department in this work is at multiple tables across this Commonwealth as lots of decisions are being made and work is being done. And that's equally as important, so that, you know, we have a little bit of say, a little bit of skin. And so appreciate the leadership on that. Comments or questions?
I teach policy. I'm at a policy school, and nobody at my policy school, aside from me, does early childhood policy. Or actually, there's two of us, but that's it, just two of us. But one of the things I stress to all of my students who are mostly interested in transportation, they're interested in housing, they're interested very much so in any aspect of affordability these days and climate and all of those things, is that early childhood policy is all of those policies. And I think that this is an embodiment and commitment and investment in demonstrating how actually early childhood policy is all of those areas, and all of those areas is also early childhood. So I appreciate the work that you all are doing. I appreciate the investment and the commitment to this for such a long time. And one of the things that is impressive to me in this second year is that at this point in time, usually when you have a 3-year type of timeline, you're like, okay, I got 3 years to do this. At this point in time, you're like, oh shoot, how do I do a sustainability? Like you kind of like run into sustainability mode and you start thinking like, how do I find a home for this? Who wants this? How do I put this? Where do I house this? And actually that has been built in from day one. And so that's not the feeling that I have here. It's I look at what has been implemented already or integrated already, and I see the home for those things. And so I don't really worry about, I mean, I always worry about sustainability, but like I don't, not like usual. And that's fantastic. I think this is a testament to kind of how government should work, how policy, how practice, how programs should be designed. And so I just want to lift that up because I think this is indeed unique. I think congratulations on getting this award because it is very difficult to get, and not a lot of folks merit this. And great job.
Yeah, and you know, when I think about that award, like it just also shows the partner philanthropy can be to help support this work as well, right? And so it isn't just like again, we teed this up as a day of partnership, right? Like it takes lots of people to make this system work in a really efficient way. And kudos to all of you, like you're modeling this and it's not easy work, but there's anyone listening, there's a spot for you here to help, and we're showing many examples of how we can do that. Any other questions or comments? Great. Well, looking forward to the May launch of year 3. It's awesome. I mean, I'll just say this, like, I do feel like we're even close though of seeing like how this actually is impacting the field, right? Like I know I appreciated that chart of like scoping and like you can really see where this stuff is. Like it's going to be fascinating to follow that process on those and then the learnings underneath them and how it's really impacting the day-to-day work of the field. So, good stuff. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
You know, I appreciate everyone's flexibility on the agenda. We did have 2 meaningful agenda items left and didn't want to put time pressure on either one of them. And so, like I said, we'll move the family, friend, and neighbor to the next meeting to give that the attention that it deserved without falling. I do believe that, sorry, I think George is on the phone and did have a question about or comment about the task force. Sure.
I did, yeah. Thanks, Chair, and apologies first of all for having to leave the meeting. But as this audience will appreciate, had to get home to my children. So sorry for having to leave. I wanted to ask a question of Gabby if she's still there, and I'm sorry, I'm driving. So oh, you are great. Just your comment about the engagement of the business community, and obviously, there's a convening role, and there's tactical things that employers can do with regard to their employee policies around around these issues. I'm just wondering if you could elaborate on that. Like, what's your initial kind of read of the business community's response to some of this, and what are some things that we can do as a board to help facilitate some of that?
Yeah, thank you for the question. And I also appreciated the last time. Thank you, volunteer to maybe help us with community of practice. And so I have that written down as a follow-up for when the time comes. But it's been really interesting. I think in the requests for the expressions of interest, we had a batch that were led by employers. We had a batch that were led by kind of the early childhood sector, and we had a batch that were led more by intermediaries. So it was a total mix. And then on the employer side, I mean, some of the ones that were employer led were smaller businesses, which I was surprised by, because this is not, it's a lift to fill out this application, to ensure you have all the right partners at the table, to really think about, okay, what does this benefit, or the support that I'm going to roll out. And then there are others where very large employers have had kind of a seat at this table for quite some time and have been leaders in galvanizing kind of other regional employers as well. So it is a total mix. And then there are some where people came to the table and asked us, hey, is there an employer partner that would be a good fit? And so that's kind of why I mentioned I think there were applicants at every step along the journey. And I think it would be nice for us to be able to support a couple of spots along that journey to really see kind of what's needed. Because the folks that are shovel ready, it's amazing because they're ready to go. And there's also something to learn from, I think, more nascent partnerships in terms of like, what are the questions that are being asked, and what do employers need to really get over the hump. But we've seen great engagement across the board, which is nice.
Yeah. Well, good to hear. Yeah, no, surprising to hear the mix also, but I guess it's good to have engagement at any level. Okay, well, thank you. Appreciate it.
Of course.
Thanks, George. All right. With that, as the commissioner mentioned, we will be in Boston in April, where we'll also have the opportunity to welcome Dr. Zweig to the board in his new role in middle of April 8th, I think, right? April 8th?
Yes.
Yes, April 8th. So with that, I will make a motion to adjourn. Can I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
See you in April. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.